The doors of the courtroom groaned as the crowd murmured among themselves. Cameras were prohibited inside, but outside, the world hummed with rumor. The world wanted to know. What motivated Meri Brown, the reclusive, faithful first wife, to take her family to court? Meri entered slowly, her heels making their way on the frigid floor, her eyes not wanting to meet Kody's. Robyn sat beside him, holding a tissue, acting as if she were the epitome of innocence. Christine and Janelle sat separated from everyone, their expressions impassive, as if they too did not know where to be anymore. The judge, a calm woman with sharp eyes, looked over her glasses. "Mrs. Brown," she said, "you've filed this case alleging emotional manipulation, financial deceit, and—" She paused, scanning the papers. "Possible falsification of legal documents tied to family property?" Meri nodded. "Yes, Your Honor, but that's not the whole truth. There's more, something that's been hidden for years." Kody's jaw tightened. Robyn's hand slid into his, desperate, rehearsed. Christine glanced over, her heart pounding. She knew Meri wasn't the kind of woman to do this unless she had something real, something devastating. The judge continued. "We'll start with opening statements." Meri's lawyer stood, a composed woman with a soft tone but eyes like steel. "Your Honor, my client was silenced for more than a decade. She entrusted her loyalty, her time, and her trust to a man who manipulated not only her, but all of the people in his household. We will present evidence that property, finances, and even personal rights were abused under the veil of spiritual leadership. And more importantly," she paused, "allowing the silence to work. We will reveal the truth that dismantles everything the Browns have constructed." Kody shifted restlessly. He detested losing control, particularly in front of others. As his lawyer rose, his tone was smooth, confident. "Your Honor, this is a mere personal vendetta. Mrs. Brown is angry at her divorce, angry at being replaced. There's no evidence of anything criminal here." But the judge didn't seem convinced. She had seen hundreds of families tear themselves apart. Something about Meri's eyes, tired but determined, told her this wasn't about jealousy. As testimonies began, the story started to unfold piece by piece. Meri spoke first, her voice trembling but clear. "For years, I thought that I was part of something special, a family united through faith and unity. But it wasn't unity, it was control. When Kody married Robyn, all of a sudden everything was different. Decisions were being made without us. Finances were being rearranged. And when I spoke up about it, I was being disobedient." Robyn's tears ran immediately, but they seemed staged. "Not true." She breathed out to the judge. "We were trying to keep everyone safe." "She's distorting it!" Meri didn't glance in her direction. "Keep who safe, Robyn? Yourself?" Gasps rippled throughout the courtroom. Christine's eyes flashed with sorrow. She'd experienced that same domination, that same dismissal. Janelle, in the back, nodded to herself silently. She had known this showdown was inevitable all along. The doors to the courtroom creaked as the murmuring crowd pushed forward. Cameras were forbidden inside, but the world outside hummed with rumor. The world wanted to know. What provoked Meri Brown, the reserved, devoted first wife, to take her family to court? Meri entered slowly, her heels clicking against the frigid floor, her gaze shying away from Kody's. Robyn was sitting near him, holding a tissue, feigning innocence. Christine and Janelle sat far from him, their expressions unreadable, as if they too didn't know where to stand any longer. The judge, a calm woman with sharp eyes, looked over her glasses. "Mrs. Brown," she said, "you've filed this case alleging emotional manipulation, financial deceit, and—" She paused, scanning the papers. "Possible falsification of legal documents tied to family property?" Meri nodded. "Yes, Your Honor, but that's not the whole truth. There's more, something that's been hidden for years." Kody's jaw tightened. Robyn's hand slid into his, desperate, rehearsed. Christine looked over, her heart racing. She knew Meri wasn't the type of woman to do this, unless she had something real, something heartbreaking. The air in the courtroom seemed to thicken, each passing second tightening the suspense. You could feel hearts beating underneath the silence. The judge went on. "We'll begin with opening statements." Meri's attorney rose, a poised woman with a gentle voice but steel-like eyes. Your Honor, my client was silenced for more than a decade. She gave her loyalty, her time, and her trust to a man who manipulated not just her, but everyone in his household. We will present evidence that property, finances, and even personal rights were abused under the guise of spiritual leadership. And more importantly, she paused, and the silence spoke. We will find the truth that turns everything the Browns have built on its head. Kody moved restlessly. He despised losing control, particularly in front of an audience. As his attorney rose, his voice was silky smooth, assured. Your Honor, this is all a matter of personal revenge. Mrs. Brown is agitated about her divorce, distressed about being replaced. There's no evidence of anything criminal here. But the judge didn't seem convinced. She had seen hundreds of families tear themselves apart. Something about Meri's eyes, tired but determined, told her this wasn't about jealousy. As testimonies began, the story started to unfold piece by piece. Meri spoke first, her voice trembling but clear. For years, I thought I was part of something beautiful, a family based on faith and oneness. But it wasn't oneness, it was control. When Kody wed Robyn, things changed. Decisions were made in our absence. Money was transferred, and when I spoke up, I was called disobedient. Robyn's tears came quickly, but they seemed practiced. Not true, she whispered urgently, facing the judge. We were trying to safeguard everybody. She's distorting it! Meri did not glance in her direction. Save who, Robyn? Yourself? The courtroom rang with gasps. Christine's eyes flashed with sorrow. She too had felt that same domination, that same disregard. Janelle, who sat in the back, nodded to herself in silence. She had always known that this confrontation awaited her. Sometimes the truth doesn't blow. It leaks out slowly. Through the seams of years of silence, the judge leaned forward and asked Meri to go on. I trusted him, Meri whispered. I sacrificed my name, my house, my self-esteem for a man who promised we were equal in God's eyes. But he lied. It was all about Robyn. He used my allegiance to justify himself. Her attorney produced papers indicating that a right she had owned jointly with Meri had been sold into an account in Robyn's name. The room exploded in whispers. Kody's face flushed. That was my choice, he snarled. The judge scowled. Mr. Brown, you will wait your turn. Robyn reached out and grasped his arm, her voice barely audible. Stop. You're making it worse. Meri gazed at them with a combination of sorrow and strength. I was quiet when you shattered my heart, Kody. But this is about the truth, and I can no longer live under a lie. The judge commanded silence. Christine leaned over and whispered to Janelle. Do you think she's going to produce it today? Janelle scowled. The DNA? I think she's going to hold out on that. The judge addressed Meri's attorney. Is there additional evidence you are going to introduce today? The attorney nodded. Yes, Your Honor. But only when the time is right. The words had sent a ripple of intrigue through the courtroom. Even the reporters out front straining to get a peek through the small glass window. Kody attempted to rise from his seat. His expression twisted into a scowl. This is outrageous. We don't have any business being here. This is family business. The judge's voice sliced through his protest like a knife. Mr. Brown, this is family business, but it's legal business now. Sit down. Kody slumped back in his chair, seething at Meri. For the first time, he appeared uncertain, like a man finally realizing he may not be above everything after all. The attorney again made his way to the bench. Your Honor, before we finish up for the day, my client has a sealed document he'd like to file with the record. The judge nodded. What document? The attorney looked over at Meri, who slowly produced that same white envelope we saw at the start, the one labeled confidential DNA results. Gasps once more. Robyn's head jerked up. No, she wouldn't. Kody's face paled. The judge arched an eyebrow. Mrs. Brown, if I might inquire, what is inside this? Meri's voice trembled. Proof, Your Honor. Proof that not all in our family was as it appeared. Christine leaned in. Oh my God, she breathed. Janelle halted, tears welling up in her eyes. Robyn stuttered. You're going to ruin us. Don't you realize what you're doing? But Meri never blinked. I'm saving myself. And perhaps I'm saving everyone else from living a lie. The judge took the envelope but didn't open it yet. We'll consider this in the next session, she stated. Court adjourned. Meri remained motionless as the gavel came down. Kody stormed off without a look back. Robyn trailed behind, crying down the hallway. Christine and Janelle hung back, looking on at Meri in a combination of fear and respect. The courtroom cleared, leaving Meri standing, staring at the bench of the judge. She muttered to herself, "It's only the beginning." The second day of the trial started off with an intensity that was palpable even before the gavel came down. The air was heavy, almost as if the room itself was aware that secrets were on the verge of spilling into the open. The courtroom was full, each seat filled, each whisper muffled when the bailiff uttered, "All rise." Meri sat demurely, her hands clasped, her face inscrutable. In front of her, Kody and Robyn walked in hand, but what their eyes expressed was otherwise. Robyn's puffy from crying, Kody's seething with fury. He would not meet Meri's eye, but the quiver of his jaw gave away his anger. The judge pushed back her glasses. "We will proceed with testimonies today. Mrs. Brown, would you like to call your first witness?" Meri's attorney stood. "Yes, Your Honor. We would call Christine Brown to the stand." There was a murmur in the room. Christine paused before she ascended, her yellow shirt gentle against the cold wood of the witness stand. She was sworn in, her voice soft but strong. Everyone was aware that Christine had her own tangled past with Kody, once devoted, now unencumbered. But her eyes, tired as they seemed, were laced with honesty. "Mrs. Brown," the attorney started slowly, "can you tell me about your relationship with Kody and Robyn since Meri's exit from the family?" Christine let out a deep breath. Once Meri left, everything was different. Kody wasn't the same. He ceased being a father figure, and more of a dictator. Everything was centered around Robyn. Holidays, money, and family gatherings. Robyn was running the show. Robyn edged uncomfortably in her seat. "That is not fair, Christine." "You don't know everything." Christine stared at her. "I know enough. You turned our family into something none of us recognized." The judge rapped the gavel against the bench. "Mrs. Brown, continue, please." Christine nodded. "There were moments I wanted to leave earlier, but I stayed, for the children. But when I learned about how Kody and Robyn dealt with property titles behind our backs, I couldn't remain silent." Meri's attorney moved closer. "Are you talking about the family property in Flagstaff?" "Yes. Meri and I both owned shares in the property. But when I requested to see the papers, suddenly my name, and hers, disappeared. Robyn's name was there instead." A wave of gasps swept through the courtroom. Kody's fists tightened. "You don't understand legal transfers. It was all to keep the family assets secure." Christine's voice was raised in anguish. "Protect? You protected yourself, Kody." "You never protected us," the judge interrupted, serene as always. "We'll keep to the property matter at the moment." "Counsel, please proceed." Meri's attorney waved a sheaf of papers. "We have the original title deed, Your Honor, and we'll be introducing that evidence presently. But first, we wish to call our next witness, Janelle Brown." The courtroom shifted as Janelle rose to her feet. She moved forward slowly, steady but wary. Unlike Christine, she wasn't angry. She was exhausted. Her loyalty had always been pragmatic, but even she had limits. Once sworn in, Janelle sat down, placing her hands together. "Meri and Christine are not lying," she started quietly. "I saw the documents. I asked Kody about it, and he said to trust the process. When I pushed him further, Robyn intervened, that we were being disrespectful wives. I shut up." "I shouldn't have," Robyn flushed. "That is not true, Janelle. You're distorting my words." But Janelle simply shook her head. "You always spoke with words that had a holy tone, but they were always about control. You made us feel guilty for questioning what you said." The courtroom went silent. Even Kody didn't say anything this time. Meri sat in her chair, silently welling up with tears. She had thought for years that she was alone in her hurt. Now, as she listened to Christine and Janelle affirm it, she knew she wasn't insane. She was correct. The lawyer went on. "Mrs. Brown, Did you ever witness instances where financial or personal choices were made without the agreement of all concerned? Janelle nodded. Yes. Bank accounts, property transactions, even healthcare decisions were signed in Robyn's name. Kody said it was more convenient that way because she was the legal wife, but it was never about convenience. It was about control. Kody pounded his hand on the table. Enough! You're all trying to tear me apart. The judge's gavel came down with a resounding thud. Mr. Brown, one more tantrum and I'll hold you in contempt. Sit down. Kody glared, his nostrils flaring. Robyn grabbed his arm again, whispering something that sounded like, "Don't give them what they want." Meri's lawyer spoke once more. Your Honor, we'd like to enter into evidence a set of emails between Kody and Robyn from 2017 to 2021, discussing asset movements and private family accounts. The judge nodded. Proceed. The attorney projected a printed email onto the courtroom screen. The subject line, "Keep this between us." Robyn gasped aloud. You can't use that. That's private. The lawyer answered evenly. Private or not, it's relevant. As the emails were read out, the courtroom could hardly believe what they heard. Sentences like Meri doesn't need to know and once it's in our names it'll be safe seemed like thunder in the silent room. Christine buried her face, not able to watch. Janelle shook her head slowly. Meri gazed straight ahead, face fixed, her feelings trapped halfway between heartbreak and vindication. The judge declared a brief recess. Those in the gallery whispered, some shaking their heads, others stricken silent. While lawyers collected their papers, Robyn turned to Meri for the first time that morning. Meri, she said quietly, her voice shaking. Why are you doing this? We could have worked on this behind closed doors. Meri spun toward her, eyes blazing with quiet fury. Privately? That's what you said when you removed me from my own family. When you stole my place, my voice, my home. I fought to keep it private for years, Robyn. You made private into silence. Robyn's lip trembled, but she didn't answer. Kody broke his silence at last, voice low and venomous. You're destroying everything. Meri looked straight into his eyes. It was already broken, Kody. I'm just done pretending it isn't. The judge returned to the bench. Court is back in session. Everyone stood. The tension was back, stronger than before. Meri's attorney stepped up to the podium again. Your Honor, before we adjourn for today, we'd like to inform the court that we've been notified of a sealed forensic report pertinent to this case. It corroborates directly with the evidence already presented. Kody's face went pale. Robyn muttered something frantic, her voice breaking. It's not ready yet. It can't be that fast. The judge looked puzzled. What report? The attorney replied. A DNA confirmation report, Your Honor. We ask that it be opened at the next session. Gasps echoed through the courtroom a second time. Christine's hand shot to her mouth. Janelle's eyes widened in shock. Kody surged forward, his voice little more than a whisper. Meri, don't do this. Meri stood firm in his gaze. I already did. The judge rapped his gavel. Very well. The court will resume tomorrow morning to hear the DNA report. Session adjourned. As individuals started to file out, Christine touched Meri's arm. Are you certain you are ready for this? Meri breathed in deeply. No, but it is time. The third day of the trial opened under stormy weather. Thunder boomed somewhere above the courthouse, and the scent of rain moved through the old building's vents. The weather itself seemed to know what was to occur. Meri sat in her habitual position, her attorney to her side, both silent. On the other side of the room, Kody rested his elbows on the table, face inscrutable. Robyn's hands shook in her lap, face red and swollen. No one said a word, not even Christine and Janelle, sitting quietly in the gallery, holding their breath for what they all dreaded would be next. The bailiff's voice shattered the silence. All rise. The judge entered, calm but stern. You may be seated, she said. We'll resume proceedings with the introduction of the sealed DNA report submitted yesterday. Counsel, are both parties ready? Meri's lawyer stood. We are, Your Honor. Kody's lawyer hesitated before replying. We are ready. The clerk moved forward carrying the same white envelope, now bearing the court seal. All the eyes in the room tracked the envelope as it was carefully deposited, in front of the judge. There was a moment of silence as the soft scratch of the judge's letter opener on the paper seal was the only noise. She unfolded the document, her face changing ever so slightly as she read the lines, and then she glanced up. "Before I read the findings, I must verify for the record," she continued. "Mrs. Brown, could you tell me the reason for this test?" Meri nodded, her hands clenched tightly against each other. "Your Honor, the test was conducted years ago in private, but the findings were concealed. It involves the paternity of one of the children, something that Kody and Robyn have not shared with the rest of us." Gasps ran around the room. Christine clapped her hand over her mouth, eyes widened. Robyn's head fell forward, tears flowing immediately. "No, Meri, don't." Kody gave her a harsh look, his voice loud. "This is crossing the line. You don't know what you're doing." The judge raised a hand. "Mr. Brown, you'll get your say. Mrs. Brown, go on." Meri drew a trembling breath. "Years back, when the family was still shooting, there were whispers. Things I dismissed, because I needed to believe in us. But when Robyn had her youngest baby, something was off. Timelines, dates, and then some of the conversations I heard between her and her ex-husband. I doubted but had nothing, until I discovered this." Her lawyer handed over a file of old text messages, recorded between Robyn and her former husband. They weren't dramatic, just logistical. But one line stood out. "You know the child looks like you." Robyn's sobs filled the courtroom. "It wasn't like that. It was complicated." The judge frowned. "We'll let the document speak for itself." The court clerk handed copies to the lawyers. Meri's attorney spoke softly. "Your Honor, the DNA report confirms that Kody Brown is not the biological father of Robyn's youngest child." The words hung in the air like thunder after lightning. Heavy, undeniable. For several seconds the room was silent. Even the hum of the overhead lights seemed to pause. Then Christine whispered, "Oh my God." Janelle's face went pale. Robyn exclaimed, "No, he's still his father. He raised him. That's what counts." Kody's voice broke. "Robyn, is this true? Did you know?" She grasped for him, but he pulled away. "Kody, I didn't mean for it to— Answer me!" His voice boomed through the courtroom. The judge banged the gavel. "Mr. Brown, keep a grip on yourself." But the deed was done. Kody got up, pacing, rubbing his hair in agitated circles. "This isn't what it seems. We were assured the test was not valid. It was outdated from prior to our marriage." Meri's attorney replied evenly. "The laboratory verifies that the sample was retested in January. The finding holds, Your Honor." The judge nodded. "Let the record show that the court accepts the validity of the DNA report." Robyn looked at Meri, her face smeared with tears. "You've destroyed us. You have no idea what you've done." Meri's eyes were shining. "No, Robyn. You did that when you founded our lives on deceit." Kody dropped into his chair, gazing blankly at the floor. The courtroom was filled with hushed murmurs, reporters writing down notes, onlookers whispering incredulity. The judge coughed. "In light of this discovery, we will proceed with testimony about the withholding of this information." Meri's attorney nodded. "Your Honor, we have one final document to present, an email exchange indicating that both Mr. and Mrs. Brown withheld the DNA results intentionally in order to safeguard their public reputation." Another ripple of gasps. Robyn's shoulders quivered. "It wasn't about image. It was about family. I didn't want the kids to feel different." Meri's tone remained soft but unyielding. "Family? You used that term to excuse all that you did. You used faith, loyalty, even motherhood to dominate us. But family is not about domination, Robyn. Family is about honesty." The judge asked for order once again. "Mr. Brown, you may address this evidence." Kody gazed up slowly. "Your Honor," he spoke softly, "I didn't hide anything to mislead anyone. I was attempting to shield my family. I figured keeping it under wraps was the proper thing to do." "From whom?" Meri questioned. "From the world or from yourself?" He remained silent. Christine whispered to Janelle, "He's coming undone." Janelle responded softly, "He's come undone for years. He just finally wore all his thread out." The courtroom seemed chillier now. The storm outside boomed loudly, thunder shaking the walls. The judge sighed. "We'll have a brief recess before we go on with cross-examination." As she stood to exit, Kody stood to face Meri, his voice shaking with anger and desperation. "You always wanted to ruin me, didn't you?" Meri shook her head. "No, Kody. I wished you would see me, but you never looked." Kody laughed cynically, the sound mirthless. "And what? Now you expect the world to love you for this?" Meri's face remained unflinching. "I don't want them to love me. I just want them to know who you truly are." Robyn rose also, her voice cracking. "You've destroyed everything. Our family, our children. How can you live with that?" Meri spoke back to her, low but firm. "The same manner that I survived those years faking happiness, one breath at a time." The judge entered, restoring order to the room. "We'll continue. Counsel, continue cross-examination." Meri's attorney inquired. "Mrs. Brown, when was it that you first discovered this information was being hidden?" Meri replied, 6 months ago or so. I discovered an old folder in one of the storage containers from our house in Flagstaff. The documents were concealed under Robyn's old court papers." The attorney nodded. "And what led you to present it in court?" Meri gazed around the room, at Kody, at Robyn, at the faces of her former sister wives. "Because for once I wanted the truth to be louder than the lies." The courtroom fell silent once more. Even the rain outside ceased. The judge scanned the room. "This court acknowledges the emotional aspect of this case, but we have to continue in fairness. We'll pick up on this tomorrow morning, when both sides will be able to make closing remarks on the withholding of the DNA report." The gavel pounded forward. Court adjourned. As soon as people started exiting, Robyn collapsed into her seat, crying. Kody remained motionless, his eyes fixed straight ahead as if stuck in a nightmare he couldn't wake from. Meri rose, collecting her papers, her face serene but haunted. Christine took a step towards her. "You did it," she said, barely above a whisper. "You really did it." Meri shook her head slowly. "No, the truth did." As she exited the courtroom, the storm at last broke outside, rain battering against the glass, thunder rumbling through the corridors. The air in the courtroom was heavier than it had been before. Imagine everyone holding their breath all at once. The hushed whispers that had resonated just moments before dissolved into a creepy silence. Everyone's eyes were trained on the witness stand where Christine Brown sat, her face a blend of tears and defiance. She glanced over at Meri, nodding slightly at her, as if to say silently, "It's time." The judge tilted forward. "Mrs. Christine Brown," she stated matter-of-factly, "you have been subpoenaed to testify about the nature of Mr. Kody Brown's financial and personal transactions while he was married to you and the other wives. Be reminded that you are under oath." Christine stood upright. "Yes, Your Honor," she answered, voice steady but shaking a little. Kody's attorney, a clever man with a sinister smile, stood up. "Mrs. Brown, let's avoid emotionalism. We're here for facts. You allege Mr. Brown abused family money and falsified documents concerning community property. Do you have evidence?" Christine paused. "Yes," she replied quietly, reaching out to grab a folder on the table in front of her. She opened it to display bank statements, land deeds, and wire transfers, each of which was signed by Kody. He wired money into an account with Robyn's name on it, and said it was for the family trust. But it wasn't. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even the court reporter paused for a moment before continuing her furious typing. Robyn's face went white, her lips shaking. "That's not true!" she exclaimed. "He did it to keep the money away from legal taxes. It was all of ours." Christine stared at her. "Then why did the account have only your name on it?" The hush that followed was intolerable. The judge held up her hand. "Mr. Brown, is this correct?" she demanded. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Those were stopgap measures," he replied. "We were under attack from the media. I had to put assets away." Christine didn't blink. "You put them away, all right, for Robyn. You purchased her a new home, new vehicle, while the rest of us were informed there wasn't enough money for groceries." Robyn began to weep. "You don't see, you didn't understand, Christine. He was under pressure, Christine. You left him, you destroyed the family." Christine's voice grew tart. "No, Robyn, the family was broken already. You and Kody just concealed it better." The judge held up her hand. "That's enough, Mrs. Brown. Stay on facts." Christine nodded. "The facts, Your Honor, are right here," she said, holding up another paper. "This one shows Kody signing Meri's name on a joint tax filing without her consent. He forged her signature. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled. Flashes from cameras sparked across the room. Meri's eyes widened in shock. She had suspected manipulation, but forgery. That was a crime. Kody's voice thundered above the commotion. That's a lie. I did what needed to be done to maintain the family's image. Do you have any idea what the public would have done if they believed we were breaking up? Christine rose, shaking with rage. You didn't do it for us. You did it for you. For your pride. For your empire of control. The judge banged the gavel. Order in the court! The noise sliced through the tension, but it could not remove the raw reality now suspended between them. Christine returned to her seat, crying. I wasted years believing loyalty would make it right, she whispered. But loyalty to a liar only makes you another liar. The room was silent. Even the judge paused before speaking once more. We'll take a brief recess, she said at last. 15 minutes. As the others shifted, Christine faced Meri. You're not alone anymore, she whispered. Whatever comes next, we meet it together. Meri clutched her hand, eyes brimming but determined. It's time he finally pays for everything. In the other room, Robyn leaned against Kody, whispering wildly, They're trying to kill you, Kody. You have to make them stop. Kody remained silent. He went white, eyes fixed on the DNA envelope on the table still untouched, yet radiating unspoken truth. For the first time, there was a flicker of fear on his face. After recess, the judge brought the court back into session. We will now proceed with the introduction of Exhibit B, submitted by Meri Brown, she stated. All eyes turned to Meri, who stood up slowly, her gaze fixed on Kody. Exhibit B, she continued, isn't about property or money. It's about identity, Kody scowled. What are you trying to say? Meri approached the evidence table and laid down a photograph face down. You once said that truth doesn't exist if no one cares about it. I used to care about it too. But the truth has a tendency to surface. The judge waved her hand. You can show the proof. Meri turned over the photo. It was a photo of Robyn's youngest daughter next to a DNA summary. The resemblance was undeniable. The courtroom gasped once more. But this time, it was Christine who clapped over her mouth, and Robyn who went rigid in every sense, her face pale as alabaster. The judge pushed up her glasses. Mrs. Brown, are you saying what I believe you are? Meri nodded, her voice trembling. I'm not implying anything, Your Honor. The results prove it. The child's DNA doesn't match Kody Brown. The words hit like thunder. For a long moment, no one breathed. Kody's lawyer dropped his pen. Robyn whispered, That's not possible. It's not possible. Kody shot up. You're lying. You're making this up. But Meri did not retreat. You think I wanted this? I prayed it wasn't true. But that child isn't yours, Kody. The judge pounded her gavel again, silencing them. But the room was mayhem. Whispers, sobs, and shock filling every space of air. Reporters yelled questions, cameras blazed like lightning. Christine gazed between them, her heart shattering for the children who would soon endure this tempest. Kody rested his elbows on the table, his fingers wrapped around the edge, his face twisted into a mask of anger and humiliation. You think you can ruin me with lies? I gave you everything! Meri's voice grew loud, not with anger but authority. You gave us control, shame, and silence. You took everything that counted, and now you'll pay for it. The judge held up her hand. We'll proceed with DNA confirmation at the next session. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell a final time, encasing the turmoil in stone. As all of them started to leave, Meri turned a final time to glance at Kody and Robyn. They remained motionless, the crushing power of fact bearing down more heavily than any judgment. And with the doors shutting behind her, Meri breathed to herself, so softly as to be almost inaudible. This isn't revenge. It's justice. The air in the courtroom was heavier than it had been before. Everyone seemed to be holding their breath simultaneously. The whispers that had reverberated mere moments before dissolved into a strange silence. All eyes were on the witness stand where Christine Brown was seated, the look on her face a hybrid of sadness and defiance. She glanced over at Meri, offered her a tiny nod, as if whispering, It's time. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Christine Brown, she said in a flat voice, You've been called to testify about the nature of Mr. Kody Brown's personal and financial activities during the period of his marriage to you and the other wives. Please keep in mind that you are under oath." Christine straightened. "Yes, Your Honor," she answered in a calm voice that had a slight quiver. Kody's attorney, a stern-looking man with a chilly grin, stood up. "Mrs. Brown, let's not get emotional here. We're just here for facts. You're alleging family funds were misused, and that Mr. Brown forged documents concerning joint property. Do you have evidence?" Christine breathed in deeply. "Yes," she said gently, picking up a folder in front of her. She opened it and pulled out bank statements, deeds to land, and wire transfers, all signed by Kody. He wired money into an account in Robyn's name, and explained to us that it was for the family trust, but it wasn't. Gasps filled the room. Even the court stenographer paused for a split second before starting her furious typing again. Robyn's face went white, her lips quivering. "That's not true," she shouted. "He did it to keep the money from taxes legally. It was all of ours." Christine stared straight at her. "Then why was your name the only one on the account?" The ensuing silence was intolerable. The courtroom was a storm without the rain, quiet, electric, and ready to blow. Every bench was filled with the audience. Cameras stood at the back, and tension clung like fog. And after all the testimonies, the tears, and the documents that broke everything once referred to as a family, this was the last session. Meri sat rigidly, hands folded, staring at the judge's table. On the other side of her, Kody and Robyn hushed to one another, white and shaken. The DNA test lay between them like a specter, irrefutable, chilling, definitive. Christine and Janelle sat in the back row, clinging to one another's hands tightly, waiting for the conclusion of a war that had ravaged years of their lives. The judge entered, and everyone rose. When she spoke, her tone was calm but sharp enough to slice through every pretense. After reviewing the DNA evidence, financial records, and testimonies presented in this case, the court has reached its conclusion. A breath rippled through the courtroom. Meri's heartbeat pounded in her ears. Kody attempted to appear nonchalant, but his leg went up and down under the table. Robyn's mascara had run already. She wouldn't meet anyone's eye. The judge went on. "But first, I have a couple of questions for both Mr. and Mrs. Brown." Kody sat up, a flash of arrogance back in his tone. "Of course, Your Honor," the judge addressed Meri first. "Mrs. Brown, why now? After all these years?" Meri breathed slowly. "Because silence was killing me, Your Honor. I believed that keeping peace was loyalty. I believed that being quiet made me strong. But all it did was allow him to rewrite the truth. I'm here because I finally want my story. Our story. Told without fear." The judge nodded gravely. "And you, Mr. Brown," she turned to Kody. "You were shown evidence contrary to your personal and financial assertions. Do you have anything to say before I make a ruling?" Kody's jaw set. "Yes, Your Honor. I created that family out of nothing. All they have is me. These women. They've turned everything around because I just had to make choices that kept what was left safe. I didn't steal. I didn't lie. I was trying to keep a family alive." The judge arched an eyebrow. "By forging signatures? By stealing money?" Kody hesitated, then grinned. "Families do desperate things to make it. You wouldn't know that unless you've had one collapse in public." The judge leaned back in her chair. "I do know desperation, Mr. Brown, but I also know accountability, and today this court will trade in facts, not manipulation." The silence fell, more dense this time. Meri felt the tears brimming, but she would not blink. The judge opened his papers to read. "This court concludes there is reasonable proof of document falsification, abuse of family common assets, and individual dishonesty. Mr. Brown, you are hereby directed to vacate the contested funds and properties to the Common Family Trust and subject yourself to an impartial audit." Gasps filled the air. Kody turned red with rage. "You can't do this." "That's my money. Sit down, Mr. Brown," the judge snapped. "You will also give a formal apology to Mrs. Meri Brown, Mrs. Christine Brown, and Mrs. Janelle Brown, admitting your misbehavior." Robyn sprang to her feet. "Your Honor, please." He was stressed. "He is not a bad man." The judge's gaze softened, but only for a second. "Mrs. Robyn Brown, the DNA test is clear. The child in question does not biologically belong to Mr. Brown. This court will not rule on paternity beyond acknowledging the factual record. But you too have a responsibility to disclose the full truth, not just to this court, but to your family. Robyn slumped back in her chair, quietly weeping. The truth had cost her everything: reputation, marriage, and the lie of love that had once looked so convincing on television. Journalists murmured wildly. Cameras snapped. And for the first time, Kody Brown, the man who had once managed 4 women and a TV dynasty, sat utterly still. The judge finished her decree. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. It was done, but the sound did not seem like triumph. It seemed like a closing door on years of hope and lies and staying alive. As they all started to disperse, Christine went over to Meri, her voice shaking. "You did it. It's finally over." Meri gently shook her head. "No, Christine. It's just beginning. The papers are signed, but the healing, that's just beginning." Kody slowly got up, facing Meri. His expression was blank, empty. "You've ruined me," he murmured. Meri gazed at him, not with anger, but with sympathy. "No, Kody, you ruined yourself when you began assuming love was possession." He didn't answer. He simply walked away, his shoulders dropped, moving out with Robyn following behind him. 2 shadows of what once was authority. Christine released a heavy breath. "So what now?" Meri glanced down at the vacant table where the letter had rested. "Now," she said, "we live honestly. Once." Outside the courthouse, wind cut through the din of cameras and reporters yelling questions. The women stood together, no longer sister wives, but sisters in fact. Meri glanced back at the building once more. "That room, it wasn't any ordinary courtroom," she breathed. "It was where I entombed the woman who was too afraid to speak." Christine smiled weakly. "And where you became the one who finally did." The audience surged forward, cameras flashing across their faces, but Meri didn't retreat. She addressed the cameras head-on. "To everyone who's ever been silenced, don't wait for permission to share your story, because truth doesn't tear families apart. Lies do." They went viral in an instant on social media, headlines bursting. A ripple of disapproval swept through the crowd. Meri's face didn't move, but her eyes hardened. Kody and Robyn inside their car watched the chaos from afar. Robyn whispered, "They'll never forgive us." Kody stared out the window, eyes blank. "They were never supposed to forgive me. They were supposed to follow me." Robyn grasped for his hand, but he retracted it. There was silence again. The sort of silence that comes after the end of a kingdom. Inside, Meri, Christine, and Janelle sat on the courthouse steps. The sun was setting, golden light pouring over them, serene for the first time in years. Christine turned to Meri. "So, what's next for you?" Meri smiled gently. "Perhaps a fresh start, perhaps just peace. But I do know one thing. I'm never again going to be somebody else's secret." Christine nodded. Then perhaps this wasn't an ending after all. Perhaps it's freedom. They sat there as the crowd faded away, 3 women who had survived the storm. The world would talk, rumors would twist, but they didn't care. They had something stronger than fame now. Truth. And as the camera fades to black, Meri's voice lingers one last time.